says, what is that knowledge by which you can know things that are unknown? You know, what is that knowledge that you can hear that which is unheard of, and that you can see that which is unseen? And he says, you know, I've traveled through all the worlds, and I have read the Vedas, and I have seen snake charming. You know, he kind of gives you a range of everything, but I have not heard of the knowledge that gives you the knowledge of the true self.
Mm-hmm.
The knowledge of the self is experiential, but it's not accessed by the mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not able to access it, but you can experience it because you're living it, you know.
Yes.
The self is life,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not an object.
Mm-hmm.
As we talked about that in the training. As soon as you objectify it, you lost it.
Mm.
And it's very good at creating, you know, kind of these facsimiles of itself, you know, where you're looking, as you're, you know, focusing on your consciousness, your witness, you always inadvertently, you're going to turn and say, well, who is this witness, you know, that's witnessing whatever, my breath or my meditation mantra or whatever your technique is? Who is observing it? And as soon as you start to observe the observer, right, you make that observer an object.
Mm-hmm.
You have separated, and it's basically the ultimate continuous witness consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
right, which cannot be objectified. So you can't pin it down, you know. And that's the trick, and that's, we talked about the game of hide and seek, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Consciousness is playing this game, you know. It's originally it's unmanifested, and then it becomes manifested into this multitude of names and forms, and, you know, the whole inexhaustible mystery of life, the colors and the sounds and everything that we experience through the senses, but even more, because the senses are limited. And that is just how it just blows up and manifests that way. But in its original state, it's what the Buddhists call the void, right? The void, shunyam, they call it, and the Hindus say purnam. Purnam is the fullness of the experience, you know, and we're not able to experience that fullness.
Mm. Why do you think we lose track of that? Like, is that part of the game of life? Is that we have to keep coming back? It's just one big, like, meditative cycle, or have we just lost our way?
So you can say or argue that it's done on purpose, because, you know, if we all knew our true self, we would not know it, right? You can only know it by not being it. You have to be apart from it. So everything is known by its opposite. That's why, you know, in every spiritual tradition, whether it's religious or philosophical, there's always that dichotomy, like the Tao, you know, the Taoists talk about the yin and yang. So you know something, you see peace because you know despair, you know unpeace, you know chaos.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's that kind of thing. You will seek peace or consciousness because you're so familiar with non-bliss, the experience of the opposite. And so, you know, the idea is to come back to it, but in some ways, the whole, you know, our wish to search for it, you know, our desire to know who we are implies that we have the experience of it. And because if we had not, and so we have this little knowledge of it somewhere, you know, in, you know, these magical moments when you're looking at the stars, when you're looking at the ocean, the sunset, you know, looking at animals or a newborn baby, you know, in magical moments, you have there is an inkling of it, you know, you recognize there's something greater.
Yeah.
And so, and that recognition is what makes us search, you know, for something deeper in life. So, but this search implies that we already have it, right? And we have this half knowledge that eventually will mature into full clarity, illumination.
You mean eventually in throughout our lifetime or throughout other lifetimes? Like, do you think that this is a reincarnation thing where all the work that we put in this life, we may become more self-realized in the next?
So in this lifetime and in other lifetimes, I mean, it's both.
Mm-hmm.
We always have a chance to approach that state of oneness, even though we have the mind. The mind is supposed to distract you. That's the job of the mind. Some people say the job of the mind is to think and to analyze and to, criticize. But the job of the mind in this case is really to distract you from knowing the self. And that's why it's known as the game, right? Because why are we doing this? We're just masochistic, and it's like some kind of cosmic masochism that we're all of us performing, and like we just like to suffer. We don't want to know what bliss is, but that's, again, so it's that dichotomy. You want to know what the opposite is by first experiencing the pain. That's why, like the Buddha obviously said, the first principle, noble truth is life is suffering, right? So life is suffering. And that's if you accept this fact that life is suffering or life is difficult, and it's supposed to be difficult, and you're going to come across a bunch of obstacles in your life, then it becomes a little bit less difficult. So now you're not surprised by the difficulties. You're expecting that at some point, you might have an obstacle or a challenge, and you prepare for it by understanding that you are not just that. You're not just this physical, limited being.
Yeah, not separate from.
Put through the suffering for no reason. This is a cleansing, a sort of cleansing that you go through, cleansing of your ego, cleansing of your mind, until the mind is calm. That's why we meditate, to make the mind calm. The mind is calm to see or to reflect that which is deeper.
Yeah.